Hey guys, Chris Orlov here. And in this video, you are going to learn 9 SaaS negotiation tips so that you can close and negotiate more SaaS deals at the prices you want. You'll learn how to avoid getting ground down on price by procurement and win at the prices you want. And we're going to cover 9 tips. I learned these through trial and error in my SaaS sales career. Much of that was from growing a company called Gong from $200,000 in ARR to over $200 million in ARR as a sales leader over a 5-year span. So if you like this video, share it with your network, hit the like button, and leave me a comment, right? Make it as simple as a big capital YES if you liked it. Hit yes below, and let's get into the first tip. So tip number 1, do not begin negotiating until your buyer dubs you vendor of choice. Okay, this is particularly true for competitive deals, right? If you're trying to win a new account and it's between you and a potential competitor, and your customer starts negotiating and pushing you on price, ask them, hey, before we get too far down the path of negotiating, which we're happy to do in the spirit of partnership, I want to get a sense, have we won vendor of choice, right? And if we haven't, then it feels like it's premature for us to start negotiating. And if we have, then of course, let's begin the process of talking through pricing. Now, here's the reason you want to do this. If you do get sucked into the whirlpool of negotiating before you get your customer to commit and agree that you are vendor of choice, all you've done is get sucked into a price battle. They're going to pit you against your competitor, and you guys are going to bid down and down and down until you have hit the bottom. And so to avoid that, first, win the competitive battle. Second, win the pricing battle. So the principle is do not negotiate with any significance in a competitive deal until you've gotten your customer to commit that, pricing aside, you are vendor of choice. And so ask that question. Hey, let's just take pricing off the table. If price were not an issue, are we vendor of choice or do we have more work to do? Go try that when customers try to negotiate with you prematurely before you want. Second, tip number 2 for negotiating SaaS deals, do not negotiate price until it's the final issue. Okay, so this is very similar to the last one, but different in the sense that it's not just about competitive deals. Okay, and so if you negotiate price before it's the last issue, then you're leaving yourself open for further price negotiations, right? Maybe they have legal stuff they need to get through. Maybe there's a CFO who needs to sign off on the deal. And if you're negotiating price before it's the last buying process step, all you're doing is opening yourself up to getting ground down on price even more as the process unfolds. And so the tip or the tactic or the talk track to use in this situation is when your customer starts negotiating on price, you simply ask, if we agreed on price right now, what additional steps would you still need to take as an organization before moving forward with a commercial agreement? And now be silent and let them answer. And if they have a laundry list of stuff that you still need to do, you need to do legal review, you need to get through procurement, you need to get sign off from this, that, or the other, then simply suggest we are happy in the spirit of partnership to talk about price when it feels like it's the right thing to do. But there are other steps that we need to do before we even get there. So that's tip number 2. Don't negotiate price until it's the last thing. Tip number 3, if you can, bring your champion to the negotiating table with procurement, right? When you get into a meeting with procurement and their goal is to start negotiating, they are going to negotiate out of context. And when I say out of context, I mean outside of business value. They don't care about business value typically. Their goal is to grind you down on price and get their pound of flesh, right? Often procurement teams are compensated for that. And so your job, ideally, this doesn't work every time, and I understand that, is to bring your champion into the room so that there is a customer voice representing business value. If it's just you and procurement, you are going to be negotiating in a vacuum. Okay, so ask your champion if they're willing to join you in the meeting with procurement so that everybody in the room has the full scope of the challenge at hand that you're solving for. That's typically the talk track I use. And I understand that your champion is not going to agree to it every time. And some companies have policies that won't allow your champion to come into that meeting, but shoot your shot, right? Don't let your assumption that they're not going to let you prevent you from asking. Ask every time, even if you get it 30, 40% of the time, it's better than 0% of the time by never asking for it. Okay, so let's get into negotiating tip number 4. Start every negotiation by quickly reviewing the business value. Now, I'm not saying be annoying and spend 30 minutes on discovery or 30 minutes pitching the business case or 30 minutes pitching the value, but you need to prevent the negotiation room from feeling like a negotiation vacuum where you're negotiating out of context. And so the talk track to kick off negotiating meetings is this. I'd like to ensure we're all aligned on the business issue we're solving so we can negotiate with this in mind. If it's okay with you, let's spend the first 3 to 5 minutes reviewing what got us to this point. And that's all you're going to do is spend 3 to 5 minutes summarizing the business problem you're solving, the root causes of the problem you're solving, and negative impact, financial value, or other business case details. Now, if you do that, now the anchor of the negotiation is set. You're negotiating to mutually make good on the opportunity you just presented, rather than just talking about price. Right now, people in the back of their mind know what's at stake in getting this negotiation right. And at least on the surface, they're probably not going to seem less price sensitive, but deep down they will be, because you presented the business opportunity or problem to be solved by coming to an agreement. If you didn't do that, the entire conversation's about price, and people will grind you down if you let them. Tip number 5, know your walkaway limit up front. Do not define your walkaway limit in the heat of the moment. You are going to make a bad decision if you do. And you also need to know your walkaway limit. You need to have one. Okay, a big part of negotiation is simply knowing where you're going to draw the line and where you're willing to walk away. Because customers, many customers, especially top negotiators, are going to push and push and push you until they feel like they've hit the line. Right? Even if they were willing to do a deal several concessions before where you are, they are not going to stop pushing, or some customers are not going to stop pushing until they feel like you are raising the white flag and screaming uncle. Okay, so know what line triggers you to scream uncle and to wave the white flag. Define that up front, know your walkaway limit up front, so that when you hit it in negotiation, if you get there, you can be upfront with your customer and say, we are now entering a territory where we don't feel like this deal is going to be a win-win for both sides, right? This is not enough for us to be able to be resourced. And so this is where we are. We would love to do business with you. In the spirit of partnership, we're trying to make this work. I can give you my left shoe if that helps. I've actually said that in a negotiation before, and it broke the tension. But that's as far as we can go with price. Okay, so know your walkaway limit. Know your walkaway limit. Number 6, get a get for every give you give. Okay, so this slows down the negotiation process. It's like driving a car 80 miles per hour down the freeway and starting to slowly pull back the e-brake. It stops the speed of negotiation in a good way. It decelerates how much your customer is willing to ask for and will continue asking for. If every time they ask for something, you respond with asking for something in return, right? That decelerates their appetite for continuing to ask for things. And so make sure you have some asks at the ready. If a customer says, I need you to capitulate on this specific legal term, make sure if you're willing to capitulate on that, what a word, you know what you're going to ask for in return. Never just give something. If you give something, all you did was feed a dragon. And dragons only get hungrier when they're fed. Okay, so always get something in return for giving something, because it douses your customer's appetite for continuing to want to ask for more things. Tip number 7, negotiation tip number 7 for SaaS sales professionals. Isolate price resistance into one of 3 buckets. This talk track is as magic bullet as they come. When you get to a late stage deal and your customer has price resistance and they're giving you a hard time about it, try to get them to answer which of the following 3 buckets they find themselves in. And the talk track goes like this. Usually when we get price resistance this late in the game, it's typically for one of 3 reasons. Number 1, you are not completely sold on the business value of this, right? We haven't made our financial case. That's number 1. Number 2, there are legitimate constraints or logistical issues preventing you from spending the money. Maybe you're sold on the business value, but there's cash constraints or something else just preventing you from pulling the trigger. Or number 3, you're simply being a steward of your company's capital and you're trying to get the best deal possible. Which of those 3 buckets do you fall into? Now, most of the time people aren't going to answer with number 3, but you're calling that out and it communicates negotiation savvy. They're usually going to answer with number 1, number 2, or even a mix of both. Now, here's the beauty of that talk track. As soon as they give you an answer, that answer they just gave you is an invitation to start solving, right? If they say, number 1, that's the issue. We're not sold on the business value. Then they just invited you to start co-creating a business case with them. Say, okay, it sounds like we skipped a really important step in this sell-buy cycle together, which is building a business case. So how about instead of negotiating for the rest of this, if that's your sticking point, let's spend some time understanding the magnitude of the problem we're solving so that you can get a sense of whether or not this is worth spending money on. Now, if they answer with number 2, they say we have legitimate cash issues or logistical issues or other constraints. We're sold on the value. We want to move forward. We just have these constraints stopping us. Then this one can be a little bit more tricky, but there are solutions, right? You can start talking through delayed payment terms or broken up payment terms, or just understanding, this is the best place to start actually, understanding their budget situation or constraint situation so that you can problem solve with them, right? Get on the same side of the table, but the ethos you're following is tell me more about the constraints so that you and I can come to a solution together. Because I think if we put our heads together, we can probably find something. So give that talk track a try. It's one of my favorite sales talk tracks of all time, and it works like an absolute charm. All right, tip number 8, when in doubt in a negotiation, ask a question. He or she who is asking the questions in a negotiation is in control of the conversation without being domineering. That is a beautiful thing. So in the middle of a negotiation, you'll often feel like you don't know what to do next. Now, when that happens, simply ask a question. Why is a good default question to ask when in doubt? When you don't know what to do, get your buyer talking. Okay, here are a few great questions just to keep at the ready. Write these down, put them on a sticky note for your next negotiation. Number 1, what's driving you to need this pricing change with such urgency? Great one when you get somebody coming in hot on pricing objections. Number 2, how familiar are you with the business value this project is set to deliver? Right, that kind of throws procurement people or other people that are coming in hot a little bit off their game. They're asking for something, steep. You say, talk to me about how familiar you are with the business case that we've created with, CMO, CRO, CIO, whatever. Number 3, what are you trying to achieve by asking for X, what they just asked? What are you trying to achieve by asking for that? Can you help me understand? Number 4, you know your CFO better than me. how do we position this to get her approval, right? If that's like the sticking point and they're like, our CFO is just not going to sign off on this. I know this. Procurement people say that all the time. Sometimes it's true. Sometimes it's a ploy and posturing. You say, okay, well, you know your CFO better than me, or you know your CEO or CMO better than me. What do you think we should do in this situation? What's the best way to position this to get them on board? Okay, so try that. That's tip number 8. Tip number 9, and the final one, effective negotiation starts at the beginning of the sales process rather than in negotiation. What you do at the beginning, where you slow down the beginning of the sales process so you can speed up later, is how you make negotiation really, really easy. You do that through discovery. You do that through building champions, through multi-threading, through aligning with the economic buyer far before you need to. And when you do this, when you do the blocking and tackling of great B2B sales, negotiation becomes far, far easier, in some cases, 10 times easier. So if you need help with that part, with really getting the front end of your deals rock solid, so that you can quantify value, so that you can build urgent pain and drive timeline, and so that you can defend and win at the price you want, go check out the pclub.io SaaS Discovery Masterclass. This is an online course that at the time of this recording, this is going to be outdated very soon, 3,000 SaaS sales professionals have already taken, and they are using it to grow their income, their revenue, and their attainment at breakneck speed. It's proven. This is the exact 5-step framework I used to train the #1 producing sales team at Gong during my tenure there. So go check it out. go.pclub.io/discovery. Again, that domain is go.pclub.io/discovery. I'm going to put the link in the comments so that's easier. And that's all I have for you today. I hope these 9 tips are helpful. I hope they help you win at the price you want and stop letting deals slip and getting ground down on price by procurement. Hopefully these give you a sense of confidence next time you walk into a negotiation meeting. And if you liked this video, hit the like button, comment below, just give me a big yes in all caps so that I know you got value and that I know I should create more YouTube videos like this. And I'll see you in the next video.